Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name's Jo Bailey. I'm the Chief Executive of Humanimal Trust. And just a reminder that this session is being recorded. If you'd move on to slide 2, Eva, please. So it was it was 10.5 years ago on May the 6th, 2014, that Professor Noel Fitzpatrick founded Humanimal Trust. And he did so because he wanted a fair deal for animals, for them to benefit from new medical advances and drugs at the time of their approval for use in humans. He wanted his patients to benefit from relevant learnings from human medicine, but also to be able to share his findings, new innovations and implants from his own practice to help others, humans and animals. Therefore, to bridge that divide between human and animal medicine, because in his view, in my view, in our view, there should be one medicine. And next slide, Eva. We are all animals, and all patients of all species matter. And therefore, we should be able to benefit from equal medical progress. Collaborative studies have the potential to inform better treatment outcomes and contribute significantly towards innovative research in both areas of medicine. It's all really about reciprocity, not just what animals can do for us, but what we can also do for them. Next slide, Eva. One Health focuses on that connection between humans, animals, plants, and the environment, and issues such as zoonotic diseases, antimicrobial resistance, and food safety. So predominantly human health, whereas One Medicine is a fair deal for humans and animals, a reciprocal approach. A cross-disciplinary collaboration to bring about transformative advances in healthcare. And plus that, by learning from real patients, those sufferings from naturally occurring diseases, clinical trials, not experiments, that are in the patient's best interests, which can be far more beneficial than inducing a disease or inflicting an injury upon an otherwise healthy laboratory animal. So therefore, we only fund research that helps and learns from patients or from the development of NAMs, non-animal models. We all know of the 3 Rs, although we add a 4th, reciprocity, as I keep mentioning, and we focus on that plus replacement. So One Medicine's caring for humans and animals. We want to position Humanimal Trust as an influencer so that those who are open to One Medicine can drive awareness, guidance, funding, laws, policy, and regulatory change. We hope to hold a House of Commons reception in spring 2025, where we will showcase our One Medicine pledge, our ethical framework, and perhaps our written parliamentary question or early day motion on allowing the approval and release of drugs for humans and animals at the same time. We need to foster greater collaboration in research and at the clinical coalface between human and animal medicine, removing barriers and building mutual respect. Our hub is a great platform for this, and we are proactively increasing engagement. Bringing professionals together, such as at our recent symposium we held a couple of weeks ago, and our panel discussion that we held, which was a group of experts from the fields of human and animal medicine, bringing them together. That's already reaping rewards that can only help patients, not hinder them. Awareness. We will continue to try and open hearts and minds to bring about societal change. We are working on a One Medicine handbook, which will hopefully provide proof of concept. We held a series of 10 webinars that started in 23 and went through to One Medicine Day, which is the day Noel founded the charity, on May the 6th this year. And we have plans to recommence those webinars next year in 2025. Research. I'm going to leave that one for a moment. So we'll move on to education. We care that every child learns about the incredible and crucially important connection we have with other species. And because of that, we entered a partnership with What on Earth Books and a wonderful author called Christopher Lloyd. We entered that last year, and the first book came out, which was called Humanimal. Can everybody see that? And it's the incredible ways animals are like us, how they feel pain, joy, fear, how they suffer, how they work in teams, how they play. And we are donating that book to children's hospitals and hospices and asking businesses to help us sponsor those books to go into those places. And also with our school's education manager, creating lesson plans so that we can help children truly understand that important connection that we have with animals. And then this year, we've just launched the next book in the series, which is called We Are All Animals. And that delves deeper internally. And it's about discovering what you have in common with a cat, a bat, a jellyfish, and 150 other animals. So we're really pleased to be in that partnership as well, and helping that vital age group, those children, to grow up learning about that vital and important connection we have. And we also care that older children, medical students, learn from and with one another to practice One Medicine. And that's why we're working on this One Medicine handbook. And we're looking at setting up One Medicine societies in universities and colleges, perhaps twinning them with global universities and colleges, and looking at scholarships. So I'm now going to pass you back to research. And so I'm going to hand you over to my lovely colleague, Eva Houtmanova. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jo. So my name is Eva Houtmanova. I do apologize. I have a slight sore throat, but I will soldier on. I just wanted to start off just clarifying really a few points. I think just in case there is any confusion, and it's a shame, and apologies you couldn't see the video. So one thing we are not proposing is not just another different type of animal model. That we certainly wouldn't want that. And we are not proposing for companion animals to suddenly become experimental animals. But we do believe that companion animals should have access to innovative treatment and options to be part of clinical trials, just like humans have. In the UK, the NHS, through the National Institute of Health Research, promotes research to be part of delivering great care. And we believe a similar sort of thing should be accessible within veterinary practice. And if you did hear Noel speak in his video, is about actually trying to get the best treatment for his patients as well, which obviously are not humans. And we believe in species-specific treatment, but we also believe that there is a lot to be learned from natural occurring diseases in different species. And if we share that knowledge, we could actually provide access to treatments much better, because both humans and animals should benefit from innovation. And if you do have a companion animal of any sort, or if you have any animals in your life, you know that if you go to the vet, you're probably likely to be given some medicines that you find in your medicine cupboard as well. So as much as there are differences, there are similarities. So if you've got a heartburn, you've probably got an omeprazole in your medicine cabinet. If your animal has a heartburn or indigestion or even stomach ulcer, you probably go to the vet and get omeprazole for them as well. If you know anybody who has a lot of neuropathic pain, or if you know anybody with epilepsy, they're likely to be given gabapentin, as would be your companion dog. The sad fact about some of these medications is that despite of the fact that they were tested on animals originally, the animals never received the benefit from those animals actually being tested on them. So I think that's the big emphasis, is having sort of quality in the delivery of healthcare. But we do believe in species-specific treatments because, of course, not all treatments work in humans and not all treatment work in animals. And obviously, if you do have a dog, please don't give them ibuprofen. It's very toxic for them. So it does cover various aspects. And even if you happen to have a dog who has cancer, and I will come back to that, there's a very interesting point about the fact that actually most of the chemotherapy in the UK that is offered to pets, cats, dogs, is actually the same that is being offered to humans. And again, the sad fact is that most of the chemotherapy that is used in the veterinary practice in the UK has for a long time, and still is for many of them, is actually used off-label in veterinary practice because it's considered a human medication. So there's a lot of inequalities and disparity in the way we approach some of these things. So I just wanted to clarify some of these points. So we are definitely not proposing another type of animal model, and we don't want anyone's companion animals to become experimental animals. So in terms of research, what we would like people to encourage, over the past 10 years, we funded various projects, and we've got more grants that we have in the pipeline. We have just launched what we call our Cancer Discovery Fund, which is quite a large amount of money. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. We've got a student award, we've got different fellowship programs, and something also we call the Connections Award, which is basically for people to try and explore how they could work better together, how they could learn from each other in order to improve treatments on both sides, really, in the veterinary practice as well as in human medicine. And we certainly, as it states there, we do not fund any research that involves experimental animals. We try to encourage people away from that. So these are some of the projects that we funded previously. Understanding how osteosarcoma spreads. I think many people will know that specifically osteosarcoma and bone cancer has a very high incidence for primary cancer in specifically large breeds of dogs. It's a lot rarer in humans, so it's a great area to learn from, and certainly around the biology of the cancer cells within that cancer. Bacteriophages as an alternative to antibiotics was one of the PhD students that we funded. We also currently have a project that is looking actually for application that has been used in human maxillofacial surgery in identifying various tumors, and that is being translated into a small animal dentistry. And of course, big part of obviously sharing our lives with animals is the fact that they actually suffer from the same conditions as we do as a result of what we've done to the environment. So exposure to various things, even in our household. So that's another project that we're funding. Previously, we have also funded projects that were focused on preventing infection and reducing the risk of antimicrobial resistance around specifically in pediatric practice and juvenile idiopathic arthritis. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about the One Medicine Cancer Discovery Fund. So we have launched that at an event we held last week on the 9th of October. It is a two-stage process. It is quite a large amount of money, so we obviously want to get the right people. The initial stage is, some of you will be familiar, is an expression of interest, which will have a deadline on the 29th of December. Those who would be successful, it will be reviewed through our science committee, will be invited to the next stage of the application during January, and then there will be a submission deadline on the 1st of April. We will be considering projects which are aiming to improve early diagnosis. Obviously, they have to have the theme of One Medicine, so there has to be a benefit to both human as well as veterinary healthcare. Those projects that improve our understanding of cancer disease biology, also any new treatments or improving existing treatments, and importantly, projects that are aiming to improve quality of life for humans and animals who have cancers. So cancer definitely does not discriminate between the species, and based on some of the data from the American Veterinary Association, approximately 1 in 4 dogs and 1 in 3 cats will at some point in their life get cancer. And I'm sure some of that is probably linked to diagnosis and how often people take them to the vet. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if looking forward, we've discovered that probably the incident rate is very similar to humans, but we now know that the statistic is that 1 in 2 will at some point in their life develop cancer. So it certainly does not discriminate. And humans and animals will get a wide range of cancers, will often receive the same treatment. It will be surgical, biological, they will have chemotherapy and radiation therapy. Nearly 50% of dogs who get diagnosed with cancer have similar cancer to the ones that humans have. As I mentioned, primary bone cancer is very common in dogs, more common in dogs than it is in people. And actually, when it comes to, as we know, often these things are driven by finances. The veterinary oncology market is actually one of the fastest growing markets there is, specifically in countries like the US and the UK, where obviously people tend to have an insurance or are actually prepared to spend quite a lot of money on the animals being treated. Naturally occurring cancers in animals can definitely help to provide answers for humans and animals. They help to develop better diagnostics and better treatments. And the emphasis in here is about naturally occurring spontaneous disease, not a disease that has been induced by a human in another animal for a purpose of allegedly treating a human. Actually studying the biology of the cancer cells, and lots of the genomic studies in the US have already provided insights into the oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes in both humans and dogs, and help to develop new biological therapies. So focusing on the disease that occurs naturally, because disease that develops, whether it's through our genetics or whether it's through the environment we live in, is a very complex disease, often is not just that one particular disease. There are a lot of comorbidities that people can suffer from, as can dogs and cats and other animals. So actually focusing on the naturally occurring disease is a bit that we like to focus on. And hopefully then working more closely together, we could accelerate licensing and reduce the R&D cost, removing the need for having laboratory animals. The combination of really all the new technology that exists, having NAMs, but also studying natural occurring disease across the species, we certainly believe is really the way forward. So just a little slide to show you how the canine and human breast cancer compares. And actually most studies that are happening now, and there are studies that are happening now, it's often when the slides are being shown, people can't actually distinguish which one is canine and which one is human. So you may think we talk about animals having access to clinical trials and having access to innovative treatment, but obviously there's a big step around that. How do we make that happen without them becoming experimental animals? So we have set out to develop what we refer to as the One Medicine ethical framework, which is being developed as a consensus between professionals, guardians, and also members of the public. And we're utilizing already well-established methods that's used in human clinical research and healthcare that some of you will recognize as a public and patient involvement and engagement, or PPIE for short. So obviously from our perspective, involving the patient is slightly more tricky. So we have replaced the word patient with the word guardian and intend to work out a model of representation that is suitable. So PGIE, as we refer to, is something that is helping us drive this development of the framework. from our perspective, in the same way that it does really in human practice, it ensures inclusion in the decision making. So we reflecting really on the input from the guardians, but also the professionals at the other end of it and members of the public more widely. And we do believe that it can drive positive change and keep professionals grounded and focused. So what have we been doing so far? So we've looked at the existing framework, and we consider representation is obviously very important. There are some frameworks already in existence, the veterinary good clinical practice, the sort of veterinary equivalent of the human part of clinical trials. The only issue with that is there is large emphasis on data credibility, far more than there is on the protection of the actual participants. So how do we actually take into account the voice of the animals that we would want to take part in research? Well, we have considered the same approach as guardians for children and people who lack capacity, where obviously there's a big focus on best interest of the individual, but can a human ever really consider best interest of the animal from their perspective, what is important to them? So we exploring different possibilities, like the capabilities approach that Martha Nussbaum has mentioned in various books of hers, because originally obviously it was developed around the human concept, but now her focus is around animals as well. So capabilities approach is very important, and I will mention that briefly again in details shortly. So what we've looked so far is actually we need to, if we want people to work together, we have to build collaborative principles for One Medicine, and we want to then develop guiding principles for veterinary medicine. There's a lot of guidance in human clinical research. There's a lot of legislation in human clinical research. There is quite a lot of variety when it comes to veterinary practice globally in terms of what can happen and what can't happen. And there is a lot more standardization within human clinical trials. So we want to really engage the professionals, but we want to also make sure that the professionals are protected when it comes to engaging in any sort of collaboration. From our perspective, in the same way as in human clinical research, we want to make sure that the framework that we developed is really underpinned by the same principles as human clinical research, the right for autonomy, non-maleficence, beneficence, and justice, so we can make sure there is really fair deal for all animals, remembering the fact that humans, of course, are animals as well, in health research, and also its application. So we don't have the disparity I mentioned right at the beginning. There's lots of licensed medicine out there, obviously would have been tested on animals. A lot of it may have failed once it moved from the animal experimentation models, but animals have never had the chance to actually receive the benefit that that medicine could have offered to them. So we want to promote the health and medicine, but never at the expense of animals' life. It's about mutual learning and collaboration. So in terms of the core points that we have put forward is about defining clinical research and the ethical consideration. Now, specifically in the UK, where there is quite a lot of confusion as to what actually classes as clinical research and what falls under the Animal Scientific Procedure Act, we need to ensure that we provide the right clarifications so actually everybody can engage in the collaboration, and that we set out really the right ethical considerations that people take to make sure that there isn't over-treatment. I mean, it happens in human healthcare quite a lot, but the idea of the animals being part of research is not about them being over-treated and providing more data for humans. They should obviously be given the option if there is no other treatment available, so they can have access to really good treatment. And as Joe mentioned, reciprocity is a big part of that. So if we can ensure that the animals can have access to the research and have benefit from it, and humans can, then I think we have fulfilled the reciprocity part. So animal welfare and quality of life obviously is a big part of that, because as I say, we don't want any sort of overtreatment. So there has to be also a species specific element. It's slightly easier from the human perspective. It's just one species that is being treated pretty much with the same consideration. But when it comes to veterinary practice, there are lots of different types of patients that need to be considered, and they're definitely from their point of view, and that's, as I say, emphasizing Martha Nussbaum's capabilities approach is about treating the animals as ends, individuals in their own rights, not as means, which also then mean there are species-specific differences as to what each species considers important. And as you can imagine, we've had quite a lot of discussions around that, and it's a bit of a minefield to make sure that we develop something that is actually usable. So we want to have a framework for governance and collaboration that would allow people to take part in One Medicine collaboration type work. And we want to make sure that the governing bodies like the RCVS, when it comes to the VES, actually accepts that. And we're hoping also that through that, we would remove some of the regulatory barriers. And again, going back to what Joe mentions, we're hoping to put forward some parliamentary questions and actually start sort of some of the debate to see how we can make changes that would allow some of the things we are proposing to take place. Transparency and trust with clients obviously are extremely important. Being open, exactly the same as would be in the human clinical research, disclosing all the relevant information that is already known, because the idea is allowing really access to innovative treatments through research, not experimenting on animals. And then ensuring that there is an integration with the human medicine and research as well as veterinary one to ensure that the standards really that are being followed in terms of even down to the protocols and study designs, that they align, that we can still be getting good quality data from both. So this is our framework, which obviously, as I say, is under development. We've had a year of working on it and trying to find our way in something that is quite a complex area that needs to cover the basis of considerable amount of information and quite a wide range of species as well. So from our perspective, in terms of what we actually do want to see in the future, and I will load all those up at the same time, we want, as we keep stressing, human and animal health to demonstrably improve as a result of One Medicine, so people working together. We would like One Medicine to be more widely understood and embraced. We really do want the collaboration between human and animal medicine to be a norm, so not to keep things so segregated, and people can really start sharing knowledge and all the patients can benefit. There also needs to be obviously sufficient funding to support the projects that need to be done to really validate things, and also funding for robust public policy to support the collaboration. And we're hoping that there will be no scientific need or legal requirement to use laboratory animals, and that combining really NAMs for humans and veterinary research can ensure that there is really species-specific treatments, and that through learning we can get to those faster. Now, sadly, like most of the things with medicines, humans tend to look after themselves quite well. So when it comes to investment into NAMs that are specific for veterinary research, this is still very limited compared to some of the investments that are happening in the human research. And obviously, even that really would be ideal if that was larger, so we can accelerate the transition as soon as possible. So if you like to know more about some of the things that we can do, you can obviously check out our website, and we also have an online community which is called the Human Animal Hub, which you are free to join. We share some of the interesting articles from One Medicine type work that is happening, and also share lots of useful information. We have specific discussion groups on there, and it's a good place to start if you really want to want to find out more. So that's me finishing talking. So what I will now do, I will stop sharing the slides, and I think we do have time for some questions. I think a couple of people have somebody says a link would be useful. Is there a link to any specific thing in terms of our website? So I think Joe has also responded that if anybody obviously have any questions that you can think of after this webinar, please do feel free to contact us. We're happy to answer any questions anybody can have and clarify any of the points. I know it's quite difficult. Sometimes people do assume that we're doing things we are not doing. So it's really important for us in terms of making sure that those things that we are hoping for in the future, for people being engaged and understanding on One Medicine, that we clarify things as much as possible to get people on board. So if anybody wants to ask any questions, please go ahead, fire away.
Pandora.
Hi there.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Thanks for a great talk, very clear, but I'm still left with some questions.
No problem.
So is it just clinical trials that you're talking about in terms of research, or is there other clinical research? And also, is there sort of research that you're talking about, does it have to have a license from the Home Office, or is it sort of regulated differently? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
a very basic question.
No, it's a very good question, and I think that's one of the sort of the points of the framework that we set in terms of defining the research and some of the uncertainties is, and in a way, it's a very UK specific problem that essentially right now, if we wanted, let's say we found a couple of veterinary practices that we would want to be part of a larger clinical trial, not necessarily of new medicine, but maybe blood samples and tissue samples are being taken, which are on top of sort of the standard of care, above the standard of care that would normally be happening. Then unfortunately, yes, the way everything is defined in ASPA, they would actually need a Home Office license for that. So it is something that obviously we've been discussing, and we're also hoping to engage with some of the veterinary practices to see what we can do on that side to help, because it is something that essentially would slow things down, if you like. Mm-hmm. And on the other question, I mean, it would be great. There is a lot of obviously there's a lot of emphasis in the human healthcare around the big data and utilizing information in terms of trying to improve treatment. If some of that also transfer to veterinary practices, and I think in a way, as much as many people will criticize the large sort of corporate groups that now own most of the veterinary practices, certainly in the UK, there should also be some benefit through the fact that they have access to massive amount of data that wouldn't be possible with individual practices. So even focusing on that sort of research is not necessarily just around interventional research, but it's about learning about the etiology of the disease, learning about the progression of the disease, which really, because of the lifespan most animals have compared to humans, actually the progression of the disease and learning about it from patients, animal patients, is much easier than learning from humans. I mean, the large Future Healthcare project that is run now in the UK with over 100,000 human participants, obviously following people over the lifespans of 70, 80 years, is going to take some time to produce any sort of data. Most of us will not see that in our lifetime, but as I say, actually progression of the disease through studying the patients and collecting the data within veterinary practice, the data, certainly the availability of the data and looking at the progression of the disease, the impact of the environment we live in, is something that it can be accessed much quicker than it can be from the human projects that we have up and running.
Thank you.
I hope that clarified things. You know, it's sometimes a bit of a worry. You answer one questions and generate two more, which is probably an indication of not a very good response, but I shall leave it there.
Okay, doesn't look like there's any question. Oh, hang on, we've got one in the chat here. Similar question. I need to go in. No problem at all.
We
Oh,
got
hang on, we've got
Lindsay,
another
yeah?
question, Lindsay.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me? I'm not
Yes.
great with Zoom. I seem to have forgotten how to use my computer. But yeah, I'm Lindsay Marshall, and I actually work for a US organisation, which an animal protection organisation. I've kind of got, I suppose, a comment and a question. So my comment is, first of all, thank you so much for this. This is really positive. I kind of feel like it feels like this is a slight shift in direction for Human-Animal Trust, because I thought, because it looks like you're going more non-animal, and originally I thought you were still had that kind of, you know, preclinical animal models, and then you were supporting the step beyond that, but there was still kind of a support of, you know, the use of mice maybe for that preclinical research. But I'm wrong there?
No, we've never supported any laboratory testing of animals at all. We've only ever funded research with NAMS and collaborated with organizations that would do the same.
Okay, excellent. Sorry for my misunderstanding.
No,
then.
no, not at all. That's why it's great to have this opportunity
Yes,
to explain.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, and then my question then was, I think I may have misunderstood this as well, but I think you mentioned developing kind of an ethical framework for companion animals in sort of animal clinical trials. Yes,
Yes,
so you're
yeah.
doing that, which I think is fantastic, and could be used for some of my work in the US. So I just wondered selfishly whether that would be published and how far down the line you are with that, and because it feels like a massive piece of work, to be honest. But I'd love to be able to capitalize on it when it's done, if that would be possible.
Yes, I mean that's definitely is obviously we want the framework that's being developed to be used, and we would definitely share it. We are actually in the next few months we are planning to just publish a brief sort of overview of the process of that we've been going through and what are the aims, and start sharing some of the work that we have done with people. And we've had discussion with some of the people in the US as well that sort of proposed the Beaumont report for animals. So we are looking further afield than the UK, and we hope it's something that can be like the GCP, the clinical research practice that can be utilized more widely around the globe, really.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. So I'll just keep my eyes peeled then. Or I guess, will you put it on the hub, Eva? Because I am.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you,
Fantastic. Thank
Lindsay.
you so much.
Pandora, that sparked another question, I think.
No, I just wanted to agree with Lindsay. I think, you know, to develop a set of guiding ethical principles based on the human framework is so important, and could be something that could then be applied to laboratory animals as well. Because as we all know, all they have are the 3 R's, which, you know, don't really work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's really important work.
Thank you, Pandora.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think it's like a lot of these talks where you do go away, and as I think it was it Rebecca on the chat who said that you know, she'll go away and digest the information and may have more questions. So please do reach out to us. Eva, if you could put your email on there as well. I've put my email on there. Please do feel free. Any questions at all, we'd be happy to try and answer anyway. Or even if you wanted a further discussion and wanted to set up a meeting with either myself and Eva or one of us, be also very happy to do that. So please reach out. It's great to have these conversations. Okay, so I think that's it then. Thank you so very much for joining us today. It's been really lovely to have this opportunity. Thank you very much.